going to go back to my thoughts on slowing down. I think that is the biggest lesson we can take as adults and impart that onto our children so that they can grow up into more aware adults, over time. So slowing down, that would be my best piece of sage advice. Slow down, absorb the essence of what's around you, even if that it just means, looking 2 steps in front of you, if that's all you're capable of in the time. Just do that to start. Slow down, take notice, absorb.
Hello and welcome. Kate Champion here. And this week I have the pleasure of talking with sister duo Elora Canne, also going by Cal in this episode, and Jude Kurten. Elora is an author, Jude is an energy healer, and together they shared a sacred adventure in the Australian Outback and wrote a book called Sisters in the Outback, an Uluru Adventure. And they're telling us all about their adventures today. They start out by discussing the significance of Uluru as an energy vortex and a living, breathing landscape, and also share a little bit about its cultural and spiritual importance. And then we dive in and chat about some fun stuff. For example, walking barefoot, how we can build our connection with the natural world, learning to be open and absorb the energy around us, and how we can begin to let go of the small everyday irritations and be open to the magic and the flow of life. Elora and Jude also stress the importance of being intentional, taking time to slow down, and really soaking in the energy as we move through the natural world. This episode is full of wisdom, practical strategies, and sage advice, all designed to help us all connect more deeply with the magic that is all around us. Elora and Jude have such a beautiful energy, and they were so generous with their wisdom and knowledge. And as a human who is also very passionate about the outdoor world and nature, I hope that you will enjoy this episode as much as I did. Fun announcement. For the next few weeks, we are celebrating Community Awareness Month, and I really need your help to spread the word. Here's what you can do. Sign up for the newsletter. The link is below. That way you're going to get updates, new episodes, and invites right into your inbox. Number 2, leave a review for the podcast. That really helps other listeners find this great content. And when you've done that, snap me a screenshot. And for the next month or so, I will send you a free digital copy of my best-selling book, You Are Limitless. Number 3, please share this podcast with a friend. This is such a great way to let somebody know that you care about them and that you're thinking about them. And if they reach out to me and snap me a screenshot, I will also send them a free copy of the book too. It is a win-win. So thank you. Your support means the world to me, and I am confident that together we can really get the word out and help even more people live stronger, longer, more intentional lives. And finally, but not least, please know that whether you are listening for the first time or a regular, I truly appreciate you, I support you, and I thank you so much for listening today. Okay, my friends, here's Elora and Jude. Hello and welcome. I have 2 very special guests today. I'm kind of excited about this. We've got Cal and we've got Judy, and they are coming in from several different parts of the world, and I'll let them explain that. And we're going to talk about their adventure. They're sisters, and they had an adventure in the Outback together. And I just read the little pocket booklet, which was just beautiful. So really happy to have you both on the show today. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for having us, Kate. It's great to be chatting with you.
Yes. So let's do one at a time. We just talked about being careful about the over talk today. So we're going to do one at a time. So one of you just start with a little bit about your journey, your background, your story, and a bit about what you are doing today. So maybe we'll go with you, Cal, first.
Sure, yes. So my background as a writer actually started with children's stories. I have a few published children's books, and all of my stories, both children's and adults, have big elements of nature in them. I first got an inkling of writing stories when I was stargazing with my eldest son on a camping trip, and we witnessed a shooting star across the sky, and that just opened up so much wonder. So that's my writing background as a children's author, which is where I started. My love of nature comes also from childhood, as of course you could imagine, tree forts, climbing trees, just, walks in forests, sort of that type of thing. And I think we're often reminded as adults to go back to what we loved as children. And so to reconnect with nature on that level has been really special as an adult. So that's where I bring in my elements of nature into my writing. So that's a little bit of my background. I'm in Sydney, Australia at the moment, semi-retired in an idyllic little small town where I often get to go for walks in nature. So that's a little bit of my background.
Thank you so much. And then Judy, how about you?
Mine's a less fun introduction to energy healing, which my field is. I managed to contract an autoimmune disease a couple 10, 12, 14 years ago now, and decided that it was not going to define me. So I started with energy healing. I took a course in quantum touch and managed to stop it in its tracks. And this is where we're at today. So now I've decided that I would like to offer other people the opportunity to get their self-healing going and have carried on from there. That's
So your story resonates with mine very much. I had an autoimmune struggle. It was pretty intense, maybe about 15 years ago. And again, thankfully, through a lot of lifestyle changes and again, really connecting with the natural world. And also, I know this is not what we're talking about today, but a little off track, working through a lot of my own kind of grief, loss, and trauma, right? And I've also been able to put that behind me and being in full remission with no medication. And so I totally connect with kind of where you're coming from. So awesome. Congratulations. And just so powerful. So powerful.
Yes.
So you guys are sisters, right? You've grown up together. Who's eldest, youngest? Tell us the scoop.
I'm the youngest. Judy's my elder sister.
Okay. And you were born and raised where?
In South Africa. Jude, do you want to go a little bit?
Yeah, we were raised in South Africa. I was born in Zambia. Kelly and I grew up very close, but very different from each other. I think I maybe am a little bit more loud, a little bit more outspoken at times, maybe more frilly, less homey.
Yes.
But we connect emotionally on a deep level. We actually feel each other's concerns at times when they are deep concerns, and that's our differences.
That's lovely. So one of our points to chat about, maybe we'll jump in there today, is that you do seem very different. I mean, you look very different. You certainly have a very different energies. And so I am curious about, your differences, but you also clearly through the writing, through the book, Sisters in the Outback, you can clearly see that there's a strong kind of connection. So I'd love to hear more about that.
I'll talk a little bit about that, and then Jude, if you want to jump in, that's you can add to it. We are definitely chalk and cheese as far as looks and personality goes. Jude is definitely the more of a free spirit, and I've learned along the way to become more of a free spirit. And Jude's effervescence is always there. That seeing the bright side of things is something that I've learned. Following in the footsteps of my older sister. But that connection that you're talking about, Kate, is something that has grown stronger as adults. We had it as children because when you're children, you have that freedom of connection anyway. But as adults and across the miles, because of course we live in different countries now, that connection has definitely grown stronger. And I think it's because when you tap into, as Jude explained, she's an energy healer, when you tap into that vibrational feeling, I don't have the exact words for it. I think that's when you can deepen your connection, and I think that's what so many people miss. It's so possible to do, and there's so much to gain from it. So I think that's how our connection has grown stronger, is through Jude's energy work, definitely.
Do you want to jump in there?
No, Kelly's covered it really well. Yes, we sort of in the beginning started to feel that we were on a similar wavelength and a similar path. And the more we chatted about things and the more we got into things, the closer we got in connection, maybe even in frequency. And we just kind of know where each other's at different times of life and have managed to work with that together. And it's sort of happened quite naturally, as Kelly said, over an amount of time.
Yeah, so that leads me to is like, how often have you kind of traveled together? How often have you venture out together? Is that something pretty recent or something that you that you do regularly?
I'll go a little bit. Because I'm not the big traveler. I've obviously have traveled, but I think Jude I'd like you to tap into your sailing travels in a little bit. But Jude and I don't travel together very often. My husband and I went on a sailing trip with Jude and her husband while they were having their jaunt on the seas. But Jude and I, the two of us, haven't had a lot of time just one-on-one together. I joined Jude in Malaysia for a week, just a weekend when they were living there. And that was, I think, from memory, our first girls-only trip. But Uluru was going away together. In Malaysia, I was going to visit Jude, whereas Uluru was our girls-only getaway. And I think that's, from memory, that's the only one that I can think of.
Yes, I think it is. We've done holidays together and visited back home in each other's different countries. And as far as that, no, nothing more. But we just seem to have deepened a connection naturally without having spent much time in each other's company, really.
So what was the impetus for your trip, your adventure in the Outback? Tell us more about that. What was the motivation? What was the inspiration? And yeah,
that was a bucket list for me. It was something I've wanted to do for a long time, Uluru. I'd been to Australia previously, but the opportunity didn't come up. And for this one, my husband was actually working there on a contract, so we had more time. Oh, and he had also torn his Achilles tendon, so he was out of action. And so the two of us decided that we would take this trip together and see where it went from there. So we managed to get the whole thing arranged and organized, and off we went, the two of us.
That's fantastic.
Of course, we invited my husband to come along with us, despite Jude's husband not being able to, but he was not going to join the two girls. So that's how it turned out, being the two of us. So that worked out really well. But I just want to go a step back to Jude's bucket list for Uluru. On one of our many conversations where we were discussing energy and connection, Jude spoke about Sedona, and I'm sure you know Sedona, Kate. And I had been on holiday there to Bell's Rock and spoke of the resonance there when we were talking about the resonance, at Uluru. And so that's kind of where the seeds started to grow into something that actually happened.
And I want to know more about Uluru. I want to know more about, the background and history, and what makes it so precious and sacred. And yeah, so listeners can learn, because this is all about learning and spreading the news. So tell us more about the area and why it was so special to you both.
I think being what they call an energy vortex, draws those of us who want to connect more deeply with nature. Obviously, it's also a destination for others who are just curious, but there are many myths and legends surrounding it. And I think if you tap into that feeling, that connection, you definitely pick up on the vibes of history, of the past, lives that have gone on there. And so it's more than just going to look at a big rock. It's about the feeling of picking up the vibrations and learning from our past. That was a little bit of it for my interest in visiting Uluru for me.
And then Judy, how about you?
For me, it was experiencing the frequency of this vibrational spot, as Kelly says, just wanting to go to a place that's steeped in spiritual sort of history. And I went in not looking into the sort of cultural aspect of the whole thing, because I didn't want to put ideas into the experience. I just wanted to feel what it had to offer as a whole, and basically went in sort of open to the magic of what it's going to offer, and to the feelings and to the frequencies. And it sure didn't disappoint.
Yeah. So now what did you learn? What did you discover? Tell us more.
Well, we had quite an interesting couple of experiences, really. When we got there, we kind of stepped into this overwhelming heat, which became more of a sort of a conscious substance to what Uluru was offering us. So that was our first experience. And then going into the campsite, into our cottage, and finding, before we'd even gone out there, finding our way around things, we already had sort of so much happening. We discovered that we had a portal outside our back cottage, that sort of a frequency and an energy, what would you call it, just the build-up, that if we were in this, it was a natural sort of a grassy portal, and we just both happened to be that way, and we stepped into it, and the feeling sort of just comes up, from the ground, really. So this is where we started at ground roots and worked our way up as we went along the different parts of the mountains. That had a whole lot to offer, more and more as we went through it. Kelly has a good story about a little willy wagtail. That was our very first, I could say, magical moment. Where, Kelly, you want to tell the story of the little wagtail?
Yeah, sure. So we had just witnessed the most amazing sunset at Uluru, and were, completely absorbed in the moment. And we were getting in our car to go back to our picnic spot for our breakfast. My door was still open, and this little willy wagtail bird came and stood right next to the car on the ground on my side of the car. And, we could both see it. And it was clearly connecting with us, making eye contact, twittering away, wagging its little tail. And Jude's very good with absorbing energy. And so we sat for a little bit and listened to, tried to connect with what the bird was telling us. And it jumped up onto the side view mirror, so it could see both of us right up close, twittered away, chatted away, wagged its little tail, and then back on the ground. And we immediately got the message was to ground ourselves and to walk barefoot, because, of course, that's what birds do, to walk barefoot to get that deeper connection. And that was really a special message, I think, because it certainly reminded me to slow down, to connect. And I did walk barefoot, thanks to Jude, who walks everywhere in flip-flops. So that was a very special little reminder from a willy wagtail.
Oh, I love that. And I did read in the little book about the flip-flops. It made me laugh, right? Because we're hikers in our family too. And I can remember taking my daughter when she was, I don't know, 8 or 10 or something. She's not a trail person, she's more of a gym rat. But we would go out on these hikes and things, and she would insist on wearing flip-flops, and just like, I want my flip-flops. And it could make me connect with that and made me laugh so much. So what is with the flip-flops, or I mean, I can guess, but tell us more about the flip-flops and the connection, and then also the barefoot, right? The grounding, like the foot to the planet, foot to the earth. Tell us more about that. Why is that so important?
Would you like to go, Jude?
There you go.
Okay, so I'll let Jude speak to the flip-flop situation, but with the grounding, with the walking barefoot, physically, obviously, you feel the physical connection, the touch, the little pebble stones, the soft powder sand. But on a more spiritual level, once your feet make that connection with the earth, there's so much to discover. I don't have the words to explain it, because I just feel, if you're open to feeling, to absorbing, it becomes more of an experience than a thought process, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Yeah, I think for me, okay, flip-flops is a South African thing. I think that's mostly what we wear everywhere we go, and easier to take them off. So, and I do a lot of barefoot. We live out in a sort of a bushy area too, so I'm mostly barefoot. But for me, it's important because as Kelly says, it's the feeling. You've got to. For me, to live in nature is feeling nature more than anything else, and the importance of walking around the roots of Uluru was feeling it. I wanted to experience as much as I could in this with this sort of trip, and so yeah, I thought that was the best way we were going to do it, and I think it did. We got to one site where there was this beautiful flat rock we'd walked in. And I said to Kelly, oh, I really need to feel the spot. Can you get a photo? So she agreed. And I went in and I lay down on this rock. And immediately I just felt the, going back, the Anangu sort of describe Uluru as a living, breathing landscape. And as I put myself flat on this rock, I could actually feel it coming through. And there was feminine energy all around me. And I was just absorbing the whole thing. A little while after that, Kaylee came back and said, are you ready for the photo? And I said, oh, no, I don't think we need to get a photo of this. And we took our time coming around and carried on with our little walk. And as we got around the corner, there was a little, they have the info boards. And the info board was that this was a sacred feminine site. And please, no photographs. So for us, that sort of just told us we were completely on the right track, feeling what we were meant to feel. And that was because of good grounding, I think, to start with. That was one of the most special moments.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And honestly, as you're kind of talking through that, I'm actually getting a little goosebumps, right? Because I'm just connected with, that again, it's so hard to put into words, right? But that connection, the energy, just this power of it all, and it just sounds just beautiful.
Yeah, we had a few moments that were really deep and profound. Is now the time, Kelly, to talk about the bow, or we'll leave that for later on?
I'm happy to jump in now because we are going with that connection at the moment. I just want to say with the walking barefoot, it also reminds us to slow down. And I think that's so important when you're wanting to connect with the energy and magic of place, to slow down, notice your surroundings as well as the feelings that are, surging through. And that's what we did on this walk, where we had the most amazing energetic connection with what we now call the little bow tree. We came to the end of our walk and we were taking it all in. There was a little drinking pool for some of the creatures. There was, the massive expanse of rock above us. And I noticed this little bough. It had 3 arched branches curving over. And I took a little selfie, as you do, And then when I was looking at the photos, and it was kind of like, the only way I can describe it is that it was white lightning going over each bough, back and forth, back and forth. And I'm assuming Jude must have seen my face because she came over later. But, then it was our experience together, and Jude, suggested to touch the tree, which I then did. And the message came through to both of us to free it somehow. And I know if you're not experiencing the situation, it might not make sense. That's why it's so important to feel these things. But this little tree's energy was trapped in that valley, and it needed to be freed. And Kate, I cannot tell you the magnitude of the feeling that came over both of us. It brought us both to tears, and the goosebumps, of course, which I can feel now. When we'd finished the whole freeing ceremony, I can only think of it as ceremony, we turned around, we said goodbye to the tree, turned around to walk back, and a massive pocket of wind came flowing through the valley. We both threw our hands up to say thank you to, the spirits. The pocket of wind stopped and we continued on our walk. It was absolutely awakening.
Profound.
Profound, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Really, again, there's feeling so much in the body. I mean, it's like just so powerful, profound. I mean, you're right. It's very difficult to put language right on some of these experiences. Have you ever
Yes.
experienced anything like that? Or is this place just so kind of magical and sacred? Is it something that is this rare for you both, or is it something that, it's pretty readily you can connect into with the energy and the connection and
I'll just jump in quickly, seeing as we're still talking about trees, and then Judy, I'll let you because you have a lot of energy stories, I'm pretty sure. Trees, sorry, Kate, with my connection to the trees, I consider myself a tree whisperer, and I don't know where that came from. I just do. Near my home, I have a little, what I call a tree boulevard, and my grandchildren call it a fairy boulevard. So that gives you an essence of what, of the resonance in that little tree boulevard. And that is where I get a lot of connections and feedback and wisdom of the trees. So it doesn't happen often, because it
Mm,
takes a deep tapping into that kind of energy for me anyway. So I don't. It's not something that happens frequently, but when I want to feel that deep connection, that's where I go and walk amongst the trees.
yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I have had quite a few of these profound moments, having sort of been energy frequency is my forte, really. It's something that I've been tapping into for many years. And I think that I have had a few more of these moments, but speaking with Kelly, she's, I think, feeling them at the same time, especially the ones that we feel together. We had a couple more that happened out at Uluru, and which we felt together, which
Mm,
it wasn't a sort of a one by one story, but we had a few of those. We had another interesting one. There's a separate reserve. What's it? You've got Uluru, and then you've got Canne Jude, and we had to drive an hour to get there. And when we got there, it was very a sort of an eerie moment. There were no other cars. There were these two huge sort of mountains with a gap in between. And we did the walk. We followed the walk through. Reverence where we needed it, silence where we needed it, and laughing when we didn't. And spent our time, took a few moments when we got to the end of the walk. And when we were coming back, I sort of turned around and I said to Kelly, there's these three energies following us. And we had a little chuckle and we said, okay, well, we'll see where they're going with this, where they're taking us. And we walked along back almost to the car park. And these energies then sort of faded out. And we didn't think anything of it. And as I said, I didn't want to research too much into the beliefs,
History.
the cultural beliefs, the history. And having got back home and looking into it, it turns out that is a male law area, and the Ananga women don't sort of go in there. So our feeling was that these three male energies, because they were male and they were benevolent, were just seeing us off to make sure we didn't stay there or do anything we weren't supposed to do. So it was almost as if they were guiding us out again, which felt quite profound in itself. So, and then when we got to the end of the car park, there was also the birds once again. Somebody had put water bowls out, and there were birds wandering around all around us. We had there was no fear. They stayed with us, and we watched them. And so I think that the energy there is pretty profound.
For those who stop to feel it, definitely.
Absolutely, you've got to stop to feel it. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
As far as other, what would you call it, the legends of Uluru, we didn't look into it, but some of the caves, there was the cooking area that you could see that, there'd burn marks on the cave, and the info told us that this is what was there. And this was all tangible. You could almost hear the chatter. You could see where they were sitting and feel where they'd been. That was one of the other moments. And the teaching cave was the other one where we kind of felt the energy of the people. And they leave their impressions in the rock formations as well. You can see sort of energy motions in the rocks almost that they've left behind, which was unexpected. I just thought of Uluru as a vortex, but no, the Anangu people have, and the ancestors definitely left energies there as well.
I remember feeling the energy in the teaching cave. There were some areas where you're allowed to touch the rocks. Obviously, not all of the areas, because some of them are sacred. But those areas where you can touch the rock, you can definitely feel the past vibrations coming through of the whole chatter, as Jude says, and the experiences that were being taught to the children, which are basically the same experiences we teach our children these days. But in those days, they were much more connected to nature, whereas, the children of today need to be reminded of that. And I think if we can sort of show by example, connecting to the earth and showing children from a young age to get back to their connection with earth, those natural rhythms will come back to them.
I'm hearing so much about kind of slowing down, taking your time, taking shoes off, touching with our hands, touching with our feet. Did you notice other people kind of slowing down and taking their time? What was your experience with that?
I was quite taken aback, Kate. There was a tour group on segways, and that's fine. If that's what they need to do, that's absolutely fine. But there's no connection with the earth. There's no looking around because you have to focus on where you're going. So perhaps it was a different reason they were there, and that's totally fine. We did see some people ambling along and walking along slowly. There were others who were on their phones, which is also fine. Perhaps they work there, perhaps they live there, and that's their daily exercise, and that's totally fine. I can't say that I noticed a lot of people slowing down and imbuing themselves with the environment as much. Perhaps it's because we're focused on our own sort of connections with the surroundings. Perhaps there were others doing similar to us, but I can't say I noticed a whole lot of people doing the same connecting as we were.
Yeah, it feels like so much is missed, right? When we're rushing and on a time frame, and we're not taking our time to breathe and look and kind of use our senses. And yeah, I
absolutely
miss so much. Yeah.
I was also, I couldn't believe that people sort of come all that way out there. And yes, Uluru is a sight to behold, but is that all that they came for? There was a lot of people were just walking by, enjoying the views. It was really pretty, and taking their photos and moving on. But there wasn't much feeling going on. I didn't see. Maybe it was just, our intentions, because that's what we were there for, and maybe they were just there for the sights. But it's a pretty spectacular place, and you'd think you'd come out there with a little bit more than just wanting the photographs. And we certainly got a whole lot more.
Absolutely.
So Jude, you mentioned the word intention, which I love. This podcast is all about living longer, stronger, more intentional lives. So if you were to, help somebody get more in touch with nature, more in touch with the energy, not only our own energy, but the energy from the kind of universe, how might you guide somebody? What might be some ways to begin to slow down and just connect and dial in?
Yeah, that's very important. And I think that the best way, I found that the best way for that to happen is to listen and to feel with your own energy field. If you can just not even slow down and smell the roses, not even just where you're going in your daily life, just experience it with your energy field. and listen with that. That'll take you to a whole lot of places you couldn't imagine having been. And then the other thing that I really try and live by is expect magic. I just, even in my everyday life, I just expect magic. And it doesn't need to be a big magic. It can be, nothing's going to stop that. But just expect magic. And it does happen. I feel that feeling with your energy and expecting the magic, and you will feel it. It'll
That's
happen.
beautiful. So I know there's going to be listeners, they're going to be thinking, energy field, how can I connect into my energy field? They really, I mean, I can kind of hear thoughts and feelings going off. So literally, I'm going to ask you to just walk me through. So if I had no clue, walk me through how I can begin to connect with my energy field. Just guide me for a minute, if you could be comfortable to do that.
Okay. A lot of people see it as a more complicated story. It's really, really very simple. You should slow down your thought process and go into what I sort of think of as a neutral way of being. So don't try and just not feel excited, not feel nervous, not feel happy. It's sort of just a neutral space. And when you go in with this neutral space is how you then open yourself up to bringing it into your field. So for me, the most the way that's going to work the most is just to empty your thoughts, empty your expectations, empty your mind. And empty your mind is such a phrase that's used all the time. But it's that simple. Empty your mind for a moment. Think of nothing. Just get into this space of total neutrality. And then the field sort of comes into you. Nothing you have to do. You just sort of feel it coming in. Probably the easiest way to start with something like that.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Cal, anything you want to add here? Anything you want to add or chime in on?
I think, yes, definitely. I think going with Jude's emptying your mind, emptying your thoughts, for me, the easiest way to do that is to focus on my breath. And it doesn't have to be the deep belly breath to start off with. Just breathing through your nose. That has often helped me when there's been so much chatter in my head that I just, need to quieten it down. Just feel your breath, listen to your breath. And that's, for me, how I clear my mind and going within, because I think that's where all the magic starts, right? It's going within, as Jude said, being open to the magic. So for me, the quickest way to clear my mind is to notice my breath in and out, even feel it. If I'm really, just feel the breath on your fingers, or just listen to the sound of your breath in and out. That empties my mind pretty quickly.
And then you can kind of connect in with this, with
Correct.
the energy. Yeah.
Talking about breath, that so everybody, it's so personal for each person. But if you're going to start from a neutral point, you can bring in your way with it. The other way that I found works really, really nicely is to breathe in, and then as you breathe out, take a longer time to breathe out. So you breathe in and breathe out, and as you breathe out take a long, slow out breath. And then the energy finds its way in easier when you're on the long, slow out breath. Is another way of connecting simply.
Beautiful. So those are some great tips for listeners that you can kind of begin to kind of practice. And what are the benefits? Why should we be more cognizant, more mindful, more intentional about connecting with ourselves, connecting with the natural world, finding, expecting magic kind of every day, which I love. What are the benefits? Why? Give us some whys.
The whys are probably because this is how you're going to bring your manifestations to you faster and more simply. And they don't have to be big manifestations. People, you want to start with, bring me $1 million or bring me the big house. And yes, you can do that, but it's going to be a whole lot easier to just bring yourself to that place of calm, sort of understanding that it's up to you, and what you're focused on and what you're bringing in is going to be right for you. So you need to bring what you want to yourself first before you can sort of branch out into the more the bigger, the house and the money. And so bring to yourself what you need as far as calm and peace and harmony, simplicity, and the rest of it comes through more easily thereafter.
Yeah, I love that, especially focusing on those things. I love that, focusing on, again, kind of gratitude. You mentioned calm, you mentioned peace, all those things that kind of just help us show up every day in a
Absolutely.
way, right? Yes. Yeah. I love that. Cal, any thought?
Yeah, I think so. When we go within and when we empty our mind, it helps us cope with our daily lives. Life throws curveballs at us all the time. It's meant to, right? That is life. There's no avoiding it. And I think taking that moment to go within and to build your strength and to build your resilience is key to handling the curveballs of life and to finding the magic that's there for all of us. And those of us who stop to absorb it are the ones who are benefiting, with the stronger resilience, and the quality of life changes definitely, because you're not in that rush rat race all the time. You've actually got moments to enjoy life more.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And the irritations of daily life, I think that for me 10 years ago was a big thing. Oh, I've got more dishes to wash. Why do I have to keep washing the floors? And these probably hit me the hardest because I was irritated. I was irritated with life. I was just irritated with myself for being irritated. And I was like, you can't live like this. This is, you're going nowhere. So start there. That's where I started, just, oh, okay, great. I've got dishes to wash, Some people don't have dishes and simple things like that. But if you bring in the magic into the daily things, it becomes easier to bring in the real magic.
Yeah, absolutely. Really well said. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share about your adventure? Anything listeners, do you think will be listeners you would want listeners to know before I ask you my kind of final question? Anything else you want to share, add?
I think the way our trip came about was really special as well. And that kind of foretold of the whole magic of the trip. And that's why I gave the little subtitle of, finding the magic place. Because as Jude explained, it was on her bucket list of vortexes to feel. But when her husband was over here in Australia working and Jude was with him, we hadn't made plans to visit Uluru as yet. It was something we kind of spoke about wanting to do. And even the way that trip fell into place, it was just, like I say, foretell of the magic that was about to happen. So as far as manifesting things that you want goes, it's definitely being open and being flexible to the way that things come about. It's not always going to be how we think it is. And I think that flexibility opens your mind to new experiences.
Yes, absolutely. Jude, any thoughts?
Well, as Kelly said, it just happened so easily. When I went over, that wasn't a thought because things are always so rushed, especially you're on a holiday. My husband was working there, but I didn't join him. We had a cat at home at that stage, and I couldn't leave her, so I was coming over to visit. And it was not supposed to be any sort of sightseeing. As I mentioned, he'd snapped his Achilles, but it just fell into place so easily. It just happened. There was hardly any work done, and the next thing we were in Uluru. And we went with sort of no expectations, which I think is quite important in life as well, except for the magic to flow. No expectations of Uluru and what we're going to find and what we're going to feel, but you do expect and have the intention of having the best experience once you're there. And yeah, they were just arbitrary little things, but when we got there, we were given an upgrade on our car. It was was beautiful. We got a big upgrade. We had the cottage right next to the swimming pool right next to our cottage, which the others didn't. I mean, we were right there. And then we were on a trip to one of the walks, and we weren't quite sure where we were going, and we'd stopped off for breakfast first. And while we were sitting in the car getting ready to go, our car double locked itself and we couldn't get out. And Candy then went through the manual and we discovered what it was and how to fix it. But we were just aghast, because what if we'd been out of the car when that happened and it had double locked itself? Nobody was going to be able to help us. So that all worked out very well. I mean, luckily we were locked inside. And the little portal right outside our cottage. So I think when you go with no expectations except to have this magic happen, these are the little things I'm talking about, and they happen all the time.
Yeah. Carol, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I think being open to any possibilities, and that goes with Jude's philosophy of not having expectations. Being open to any possibilities, it opens up a whole new world out there. I mean, I know that's cliche, but it really does. If you have no expectations, if you're open to any and all possibilities, there's so much to explore and discover and experience.
Absolutely. And I'm just, again, so as a kind of hiker, backpacker, traveler, I mean, that's really, kind of having that open-mindedness and not getting caught up in the details and all the minutiae, right? But just being open to, I don't know, the curiosities, the possibilities, the wonder, the awe. I mean, I imagine you guys have experienced so much awe when you were on your trip and in that area, but just, and things will come in, right? And you'll meet nice people, it provides, right? The universe kind of provides, when you can be open and in that space, the universe just provides somehow. I don't know. Yeah.
Definitely.
It definitely does. Makes everything happen just so much more easily. As you say, nothing can go wrong, because whatever is. And it always works out. So I think that's just expect it to be, and it is.
Yeah. What were your biggest takeaways, Cal? What was your biggest takeaway from your trip with your sister in Uluru? Help me with that word again.
My biggest takeaway?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway with the trip with your sister. What was? Tell me about.
Okay, I think for me the biggest takeaway definitely deepened my connection with my sister, which we explained in the beginning was already there. But I think the biggest takeaway of the sense of place is the magnitude of nature and our tiny place in it. We've inserted ourselves into an environment that we had so much to learn from, and there is so much to learn from nature. So I think that would be my biggest takeaway: the magnitude of what's on offer from nature if you take the time to learn from it.
Beautiful. And Judy, how about you?
I think for me it was much the same. Cal and I's connection was quite sort of not eye-opening, because I knew of it, but we kind of knew what each other was experiencing at each moment, and when to be silent and when not to be silent. And for me, it just showed me a little bit more about how connected we actually are together.
Yeah, beautiful. So I'm just going to invite you all to just take a breath, and just such a rich conversation today. Thank you so much. So my final question is the sage advice question. And Cal, I'm going to ask you first. If you were to give listeners one piece of sage advice about living kind of longer, stronger, and more intentionally, what might that be?
So I'm going to go back to my thoughts on slowing down. I think that is the biggest lesson we can take as adults and impart that onto our children, so that they can grow up into more aware adults, over time. So slowing down, that would be my best piece of sage advice. Slow down, absorb the essence of what's around you, even if that it just means, looking 2 steps in front of you, if that's all you're capable of in the time. Just do that to start. Slow down, take notice, absorb.
Yeah, beautiful. And Judy, same question for you. What would your advice be?
Yeah, I guess I've mentioned it along the way. I would definitely say that listening, feeling with your energy field is one of the best gifts you could give to yourself. Expect magic every day. And not going into situations with expectation. Basically just go in expecting the best, so that is an expectation, I guess, but don't put any ideas into what your experience is going to be. Just know that you're going to have a great experience and feel it. So feel it. For me, everything is just feel it.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. So Cal, if people want to connect and check you out, where can they find you?
I'm most active on Instagram. My Instagram handle is cal.g.s. I do also have a very active author page, which is under my pen name of Elora Canne, which is Elora_Canne. I think those are the best places to connect with me. I have an author's blog as well, but you'll find that once you connect with me on Instagram.
Awesome. And then Judy, how about you?
I have Instagram as well, Quantum Healing, and then I have a website, quantumhealingenergy.weebly.com, and that will give you a little bit more of energy healing and energy field.
Fantastic. And I will, of course, put all those links in the show notes so people can reach out. I would encourage people to really check out Cal's work, but also the Judy's work around the energy healing and the there's so much there. So if you haven't, listeners, if you haven't taken a look at that, that's a great place to start. So check out Judy's website as well. And I'm sure you guys are both open to questions about your trip. And I just thank you for this conversation today. I've learned so much and I just really appreciate your time.
It's been our pleasure, Kate. It's so lovely to have the opportunity to talk about these things with people who understand it and get it, and to give a little bit of insight to those who are learning and want to learn about the magic of place.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So thank you. You guys are the best. I wish you all the best. I'll put those links in the show notes, and listeners will check you out for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's great.
Indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really appreciate you and your time. Remember that I do love to hear from listeners, so connect with me at katechampionauthor.com. Grab your free hiking guide, share your favorite episode with a friend, and subscribe to the show. Until next time. Hey, me again. Just a reminder, this podcast should not be considered professional advice. It's also not a substitute for mental, physical, or any other healthcare-related treatment. For any questions about your condition and/or concerns, please contact a fully licensed healthcare professional. Thank you.